So in this episode, I want to go through and talk about initial startup procedures. So basically you want to go through an initial startup procedure or a heat cycle every time that you have rebuilt an engine or done a top end or new piston rings, new pistons, new gaskets, anything like that. Basically this heat cycling procedure, it helps the piston rings mate to the bores, it helps them seal better. It also helps brand new pistons. If you've got pistons that's never been run before, they haven't been heat cycled, and that helps them get hot then cold then hot then cold, and that stops them from deforming, or maybe they grow a little bit or something silly like that. We just heat it up a little bit at a time and then let it cool completely down. Instead of just starting this thing up and then going straight on the highway and ripping the hell out of this thing and getting it super hot, we're going to take it in stages and then take it there. Basically, the way we're going to do that is there's 4 different stages that we're going to go through. So I'm going to do those stages on this bike. I'm going to show it to you super quick so this isn't a long video. But basically, the first stage is 4 separate startups. So these 4 separate startups, we want to make sure this engine gets completely cold between the different startups. So if you've got a brand new engine, like I said, the first startup is probably the most crucial. You want to be looking in the oil bag, making sure you're getting oil returning. You want to make sure that you've got an oil pressure gauge. If you don't have a gauge on there, you can go out and buy just like a mechanical gauge that'll just screw in somewhere. You want to do that on a first startup to make sure that your engine is getting good oil pressure. No point doing a heat cycle if you've got no oil pressure, because you're going to have a dead engine at the end of it. So always make sure you can take the lid off your oil bag, then you can check that it's returning. And basically all we're going to do in the first 4 startups, we're going to start this thing up, we're going to rev it to about 1200 to 1400 revs for 10 seconds each. So the idea of that is it's not just sitting at idle and chugging away, we want this engine to be turning over pretty quickly. So between our startups, we want this thing to get completely cold. You want to be able to touch the thing everywhere and it not be hot. Best way to do that between startups is get a fan and blow it into the engine. That'll make sure it cools down pretty quickly so you're not taking all day to heat cycle an engine. So let's do it. Fuel on. Couple primes, choke on. So that is it. That was 10 seconds, and now the thing has a tiny bit of heat in it. So I'm going to get my fan and we're going to put it on this, and then we're going to wait till it's completely cooled down, and then we're going to do it again. We want to do that 4 times. So step 2 on heat cycling our engine, we want to do exactly the same thing, but this time we want to do it for 20 seconds. So I'm going to do that 4 times again. Let's go. Now remember, this engine is completely cold between cycles. I'll let this thing cool down, and every single time we stop and start this thing, it's going to be super cold. Seconds, 12 to 1400 RPM. So we want to do that 4 times, letting it cool down each time, and then we're on to stage 3. Now what I like to do between heat cycles, I like to put a little bit of tape on the bike somewhere and have my stages 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I like to put a tally beside it, just so I don't forget where I'm up to in my heat cycle. So obviously stage 1, 2, 3, 4. That was a full stage done, and now we're on to stage 2. That's going to be heat cycle 1, and now I'm on to heat cycle 2. Alright, so that's all of my stage 2 done. Now on to stage 3. Now, stage 3 of our heat cycling procedure is 45 seconds, running at 12 to 1400 RPM again, but we want to do it for 3 times. So it goes 4, 4, 3, and then in stage 4, which is the last stage, is only 2 times we run for a minute and a half. So let's get these 3 45-second intervals out of the way, and then we can get onto the last stage. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Oh, ho, ho, ho. I didn't have any fucking... Take a bit of timing out of that, eh? So I keep my leg attached to my body. Sweet, so I'll do 45 seconds 2 more times, and then we're on to the last stage of this thing. Alright, so the last stage of our initial startup procedure is stage 4. Now, all we want to do in this last procedure is we just want to run this thing for a minute and a half, just varying the revs sort of thing until it sort of sits at a nice, calm, steady idle. Then we know it's well up to heat, we give it a few revs, mess around with it a bit, we don't have to hold it at 12 to 1400 RPM anymore. And then after we've done this twice, let it cool down the whole way, we are ready to take this thing for a ride. Now, I will talk to you about our run-in procedure while we're riding this thing a little bit later, but for now, let's get these startup procedures done. Now, I'm going to take some timing out of this so I don't blow my leg to pieces again. Now, this should start. Alright, the other thing you'll notice there, see how I'm not standing this thing upright, I'm not just sitting it on the stand. Now the reason I like to do that is because what's happening when you sit this thing on the stand and just slow idle it, the rod set inside your flywheel is smashing into one side of your thrust washer, and it's just going to sit there and wear it out. So if you start this thing up cold every single time and then let it sit on its stand, and then to warm up, you're just going to slowly wear that fucking left flywheel thrust washer to nothing, and then your rod set's going to bang around in there. So if you're going to let your thing idle, like I just did cold, you want to stand it up like that, let it warm up standing up, so that your rod set is not destroying one side of your thrust washers. So I'm going to let this thing completely cool down, do it one more time, and then we'll take this thing out for a rip and do some run-in miles. Alright, it's time to take this thing for a bit of a test ride and a bit of a run-in. There's a bit of a procedure to doing that, so I'll tell you about that on the road, but as you guys can probably see, I have my shed slab in the background here. I'm just saving up a bit of money so I can put the shed up, but if you guys want to support me any little way possible, I have these shirts for sale. If you jump over to my Instagram, you can help support the channel. I want to do more of this, but unfortunately not working and doing this full time, it's sort of a bit difficult. But let's get to running this thing in. Put a bit of timing in that, eh? if you want